Your salvation, for better or for worse, is up to you. God has done everything He is going to do for you. He has given everything He's going to give to you. The choices you make and decide for yourself really is up to you. You can decide to find out the facts and learn about them according to your faith and according to your decision-making process. You're not stupid, nor are you ignorant. You have been told what the gospel is. You've been told what the church is. You have seen Christians who are both righteous and unrighteous. You have seen the world and what it does. You have seen Christianity and what it does. You have seen other religions. You have seen philosophies. You have seen everything you really need to know in order to make some kind of decision. But the choices you make are still up to you. You can choose to live your life any way you want to. And according to the land that you're living in, according to the laws that you're subject to, according to the circumstances of life as it comes to you, you'll discover pretty quickly that there is a God, and you will have to deal with Him sooner or later. The choice is up to you. I really can't tell you what to do with your choice. I can't tell you to choose today whom you will serve. I can't tell you anything you haven't already heard at some point in time in your life, because you're not ignorant, nor are you stupid. You are someone who has, within your own technology, with your own circle of friends, or your life you're living right now, where you're at, the way you are, as you are. You have churches, people, places, and things that you can find out information to make a wise and intelligent choice to live out your life according to your will, or the will of someone else who came and said that he wanted to do not his will, but his Father's will. You have to decide for yourself whether or not this Jesus is true, real, and alive. You have to decide for yourself whether or not this is some kind of mystical, magical carpet ride, or whether it's a reality of God that exists in a dimension that we supposedly cannot see, feel, or touch, and yet we can. You have to decide for yourself whether or not you live according to your ideas from tabloid mentality, looking at, ooh, the latest buzz of ghost hunters or some kind of television byproduct where it says we don't know if God is real. You have to decide for yourself who you're going to listen to, what you're going to participate in, and how you're going to live your life. When you come to the end of your life, you'll discover that you'll be terrified of death unless you know that death is not the end of life. You'll come to a place where you realize that there must be something more to living than just the simple existence of every day going about the motions and doing the things that you've done. When you have paid the consequences of your choices and had to do things and pay for things that you felt were unfair, unrighteous, and didn't involve you, and you wonder why life is the way it is, you'll come to a certain conclusion sooner or later that there is more to life than what you've lived. When you come to that conclusion, you will have to determine for yourself what you are going to do with eternity. Because the reality of the fact is that not only does life continue on beyond the physical manifestation that you see yourself living in, your body and just your way you see yourself in the mirror, but you know that there's something more inside of you than just what you look like, because you can feel something. And you know that there's something more to feelings than just input of some kind of data that stimulates your nerves and creates some kind of electrical thought process within your brain. You know there has to be something more. You've known that. You've always believed that. You were taught that at some point in time. You were given, as God says, a measure of faith. And what you've done with that is your choice. What you do with that now, I can't say. I can't make that determination for you. I can only tell you in every single VidDevo Gospel, we presented the good news in a different format, a different way. We've tried to look at it from everybody's perspective and say, what if someone's coming from a different background? What if they don't really understand? What if they really don't get it? What if they maybe need just some other way to look at it? Well, fine. That's why we do this. That's why we talk turkey bluntly. That's why we say the things we say. Not to connive or convince you, because frankly, no offense to you, I don't care. You see, everyone has an excuse, but nobody has a reason. There's no reason why anyone should go to hell. There's no reason why anyone should be damned. There frankly is no reason at all why anyone should turn their back on so free a gift of salvation that God has given through the death and resurrection of His only begotten Son. There is no reason. And to put it bluntly, there is no excuse. You see, it's never been about the church or religion. It's never been about Christianity. It's never been about those things that you can point at and blame other people for by saying, oh, well, the Bible's not true, or, I don't want to follow some rule or regulation. I don't want to ruin my life. I don't want to do what God says. Then don't. Quite frankly, go ahead. See where it gets you and tell me how's that working out for you. Because until you come to the place of the realization of the end of your life, and until you come to the place where your experiences catch up with the wisdom that you know you're tired of paying for what you didn't buy, or maybe you did, when you finally figured out that you don't have the time to pay for the crime, and you want something more than just paying the consequences of the stupidity of your life that you've chosen to live, then you'll come to God and you'll ask Him for help. And when you do, you're going to find something interesting. He will. Oh, He may not take away everything that you've done. He may forgive you for it, but He can't take it away necessarily. But He can help you to live through it in a way that you won't mind it. Because you see, once you have a personal relationship with God, everything in this life takes on new meaning. Suddenly you discover there's a purpose for the things that have happened in your life. Before you knew God, the entire purpose of your life was simply to learn, discover, and know God. Everything that happened to you was for a design and a reason, to bring you to a point of understanding who God is, and what He requires of you. When you came to that conclusion of the circumstances of your life forcing you into making a decision, God gave you the opportunity. Will you accept me or will you reject me? And God does that in this life while you're living. You have that freedom of choice to decide, will you accept God or will you reject Him? And that's what we call salvation. The acceptance of His provision for you to live eternally, to live a life that would exist beyond death. And in order to do that, you have to accept what Jesus has done, because that's what God said. And God determines where you will spend your eternity. So you can either accept Him or reject Him. That's always been your choice and always will be. But there comes a time where, at some point in time, even after you've rejected Him enough, God says, I've had enough. And He leaves you to your own designs. And suddenly you find yourself far, far from God. Should you think that you've committed the unpardonable sin, should you think that you've gone too far, let me remind you of who Jesus is and why He died. He died so that no man, at any point in time while he's still alive, doesn't have the opportunity to be saved. He died such a miserable, humiliating death and was so beaten and so tortured so that no one in their right mind or their wrong mind would be able to say they didn't have the opportunity to be saved. You see, God has provided everything He needs to do for your salvation. He's done everything you need to understand for you to make a choice, an intelligent choice to follow God. He's done it all. The question is, what are you doing with it now? And that's why you still have that freedom of choice. You can do whatever you want to do. And maybe at sometimes you think you got away with it. But until you come to the end of your life, until you actually have gasped your last breath, you still have the opportunity for salvation. But God help you if you don't make that choice before you die. Because you see, without deciding to accept God, when you reject God and you have not made that decision, you go to hell. And that was your choice. So really, salvation and the good news in the gospel is that, yeah, hey, you have the freedom, you have the ability, you have the power. What are you going to do with it? No, we're not going to close our eyes and say a prayer. No, we're not going to pretend like you have contended for, your salvation. No, you need to get it together. You need to get your act cleaned up. You need to go talk to someone about God. As a matter of fact, you probably need to start with God himself. Because, bluntly, they that call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But you need to start somewhere. And even if you don't feel like it, but you've somehow felt like you need to do something about it, then all I tell you is just flat out, do it. Stop now, turn off the VidDevo, go ahead, talk to God, tell him about it. Because frankly, I don't want to hear your excuses. I just want to hear your reason of why you chose to follow God, as opposed to why you were dumb enough to reject him.